I think the future looks extremely bright for us. And we always have to work for it. So I think in that sense that India, I remember in 91 April, before the economic reforms were announced, I went to Wall Street to say, you will have to come to us and we will be the two most important countries in the world, simply because we had character, we had freedoms, etc. And I think that is playing out. And that confidence that I had in 91 is many times more today in 22, that India will not only be a very material and significant country for the world, but what India has will be of great significance to almost every country in the world.
Comprehend what will happen in the next 75 years from here, but we can certainly try and understand from your wisdom what lies in store for us for the next 5 to 10 years. How do you see this decade shaping up for India?
I think clearly the geopolitical challenge is the biggest one. We have yet sensitivity to energy that, our sensitivity to oil is gone down, but it still remains. So I think some of these issues are very big ones. We are wanting to go to electric vehicles. There's a whole challenge of rare earths and issues like this. So my geopolitics is, well, what to say, is the most friendly in the world, having had to fight 5 wars since independence. It's a huge burden. So we yet need to increase our defense expenditure because of geopolitics. So given all these challenges, I still think that when you allow freedoms to people, and when the people are cultured, people are, basically they're intelligent. You don't have to be educated in terms of a Harvard degree, but they're basically intelligent. They will find many, many solutions to this. The government has to provide equal opportunity, which I think, today this DBT and a lot of other platforms are allowing. We need to come up, free the resources from the government. The government is moving in that direction. I think privatizing Air India is a big, it deserves a big salute, and I hope more of that happens. So I think if these things happen, the next 5-10 years look absolutely wonderful to me. And I like to quote Mr. Birla, who said that next 10 years is going to see a festival of capex. And I think we have had that starvation for almost a decade. If that happens along with this innovation, I think you're going to see greater creation of jobs, you're going to see new businesses, you're seeing good things.
Geographies. One is going through a recessionary pattern, which is Europe gas crisis, economic crisis. And China is slowing down by choice. These are two large blocks. They both are moving differently. India somewhere fits in middle. How will everything pan out? Because in today's flat world, everything has to be connected.
They are connected, but people don't do uniformly. Countries don't do uniformly. They have their own destiny, own political dispensation and cycles. And nature kind of evens out. So I think Europe had its chance for more than 2 centuries, in the 16th, 17th, 18th, for several centuries. So, the declining population, the essential insularism in Europe, their failed experiment in terms of EU, etc., and now the geopolitics of gas, etc., have come to, But it depends. I think, this difficulty may give them a chance. China, of course, is not slowing down by choice. China has this whole geopolitical aspiration and an economic challenge. How it is going to manage that, one has to see. And maybe when you grow at an accelerated pace, you revert to mean. Maybe China will revert to mean in some kind, and maybe 3% is the new, normal growth rate for them, and the economy will have to adjust. India, at least next 20, 30 years, we have, demographics in our advantage. If we can, give a better quality of life to our people, then only, otherwise it's a curse. So I think we are going to see, the question is, if you think about it, in the 60s and the 70s, who knew about India and China? The world didn't bother. So the world adjusts very quickly to new winners, long live the new king, and people forget. So I think all people will forget Europe, if Europe does not come about. It'll be India and whatever other countries. I mean, the way Vietnam, Bangladesh, a lot of these other countries are coming up. And Europe also has new parts. The Estonia and, some of those countries are so promising. So it's a very interesting place, and you got to respect the new winners.
What is in store for stock market investors in this decade? Last decade, we pretty much gave a positive return, but what return was in line with earnings estimate. Earnings were not great for last 10 years. This time ingredients are in the building block. We are talking about a GDP growth which could be above mean. So are we in for good grand returns which are above mean returns from these levels in this decade?
I think the one big thing is that the interest rates are much lower now. And therefore my risk-free return itself, that base has come down. And therefore my expectation of return from risk capital must also come down. Number two, we are in a world which is going from QE to QT. And therefore, to the extent that some part of our stock market returns came from foreigners coming and buying in many times at superior prices, some of that may be suppressed. I don't think that the world will not participate in India's growth and story, so that will also happen. So I must temper down my expectation in alignment with lower interest rates. If interest rates go up here, which means we have higher nominal economic growth rate because of higher inflation, etc., my returns may be better. So I need to align my inflation rate, my interest rate, and my expectation from the market. The stock market will continue to give you superior returns to the risk-free returns by a good margin. Therefore, I will continue to remain invested in the stock market.
But do you think large of the inflation scare is something which is getting priced in both in the bond market and also in the equity market?
One hopes that we do not have negative surprises on oil and some of the sensitive areas. I think the central banks are again moving well. They are not moving in as tight alignment as they moved after 2008, but they are more or less moving in alignment. They are all tightening. They are all wanting to get ahead of the curve, which is great news. You're seeing commodity prices soften around the world. You've seen freight rates is starting to come down. The Baltic has almost crashed, which are all very good pointers that the cycle becoming short by better use of data and more proactive action. I think that is playing out. I hope it continues to play out, and then I think that pain will not be that long. But I think returning to healthy practices is only good, and the better players will benefit from it.
Just a couple of last follow-up questions, and one question is about a sector which has seen disruption but also dominance. That's financials. Big banks are becoming bigger, and big banks are becoming mega banks. But there's also disruption happening in the fintech world. Just about every service a traditional bank is providing is getting challenged now. How do you see things moving in the financial sector?
So question is, I think the financial sector, to the extent that it touches every life from retail to the big behemoth, I think is bound to do well if they are well managed. Of course, they have to manage risk, they have to mobilize liabilities and so on. So it's not easy to manage. And therefore, we have seen a lot of banks having had to merge and so on and so forth. So the rewards come only if you are extremely well managed. As far as the fintechs are concerned, the Reserve Bank has been a good regulator. It allowed certain kind of freedoms. Now it's tightening those freedoms. But I think this spark to create fintechs of one kind or the other is going to remain in this country. And they will provide a healthy competition, healthy, should I say, complement our banking sector. So I think it's all good news.
So who has the right to win in this decade, sir, then?
I think you will have to be extremely competent. You will have to be nimble. And you will have to display better character than ever before. As the world, the data becomes easier, as the world becomes more democratic, the power of character and values is going to be more and more manifest. So, you may rise fast, but you will fall faster. So in the world of social media, sometimes wrongly, but you're pulled down very fast. And therefore, it's best that, you practice values as a habit and character instead of, being forced by this code or that code. And I think there are a lot of younger companies are showing that, not all, but that's a good thing. So I see average governance only improve in this country.
Last but one question, and every time we have a pleasure of coming to this office, it is a bit of a nostalgia because this is one office where you've championed the cause of privatization. You were part of a lot of privatization process. Privatization has been both hot and cold. We can look at the success of Air India, but we can challenge that nothing has happened on BPCL. In next 3-4 years, do you think government should essentially vacate all the businesses which they are?
See, we are a democracy, and the government has to be sensitive to so many aspects. I think it has displayed enough intent by doing LIC at a very truncated valuation, by doing Air India, and taking a lot of steps to make BPCL happen. But having worked with the government, I know the kind of challenges that they have. But all my compliments to the government, the way they have brought in the reforms, the way they brought GST. If the government had the guts to bring GST, I think it speaks volume more than anything else. I think IBC and GST, and then to bring RERA, I think all in quick succession, leaves no doubt in my mind that the government intends to vacate whatever it politically can. So I do not want to impose a calendar on them, but I think the intent is well set.